She was taken from everything she knew, forced into the hands of the man her people feared most. But what she discovered in his eyes wasn't death. It was something she never imagined. Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you liked the story, and where you're watching from and why you're following this. The relentless Texas sun beat down on Sarah Mitchell as she hung laundry outside her small cabin. At 30 years old, her once soft hands had grown calloused from 2 years of managing the homestead alone since her husband Thomas died from fever. Her golden hair, usually tied back neatly, had rebellious strands dancing in the hot breeze. The isolated cabin sat on the edge of the settlement, dangerously close to Comanche territory, but the fertile land had been worth the risk when Thomas was alive. "Mama, look!" 8-year-old Emma pointed excitedly toward the horizon. "Riders coming!" Sarah's heart sank as she squinted against the harsh sunlight. Not the monthly supply wagon. It was too early. 5 riders approached rapidly, and even from a distance, their silhouettes weren't those of white settlers. "Inside, Emma, now!" Sarah grabbed her daughter's hand and rushed toward the cabin. They barely made it through the door when the first arrow struck the wooden frame. "Under the bed, sweetheart. Stay quiet no matter what happens," Sarah whispered urgently, kissing Emma's forehead before reaching for Thomas's old rifle. The door splintered open. Sarah managed one shot before they were upon her. A tall warrior with fierce eyes and a face marked with ceremonial paint dodged her bullet and knocked the weapon from her hands. She fought fiercely, clawing and kicking as another warrior searched the cabin. "No, please!" Sarah screamed as the second warrior dragged Emma from beneath the bed. The leader barked commands in Comanche, studying Sarah with calculating eyes. She understood nothing of their language but recognized the deliberation in his gaze. Instead of killing her instantly as she expected, he bound her wrists with rawhide strips. "My daughter! Please, not my daughter!" Sarah pleaded as they separated them, placing Emma on one horse and Sarah on another. The leader mounted behind her, his muscled arms securing her firmly against his chest. For hours they rode deep into Comanche territory, until the familiar landscape of settlers' country disappeared entirely. Sarah's tears had dried, replaced by a hollow numbness. The warrior behind her neither spoke nor acknowledged her distress. By nightfall, they reached a temporary camp where several other Comanche warriors waited. As they dismounted, Sarah frantically searched for Emma, spotting her huddled by a small fire, with an elderly Comanche woman who offered her food. The child looked terrified but unharmed. The leader approached a distinguished older warrior, whose headdress and commanding presence marked him as someone of importance. Words were exchanged, gestures made toward Sarah, and suddenly all eyes turned to her. "I am Swift Arrow," the older warrior spoke in halting English, surprising Sarah. "This is Black Wolf." He pointed to the warrior who had captured her. "You are now his." "What do you mean?" Sarah's voice trembled. "His wife. Black Wolf needs wife. You are strong. Fight well. Good mother for warriors." Sarah's legs nearly buckled beneath her. "No," she whispered. "I would rather die." Swift Arrow's expression remained impassive. "Die or live, your choice. But girl child dies with you." Sarah looked at Emma, her heart shattering. "If I agree, you will spare my daughter?" Girl child lives, becomes Comanche. Sarah closed her eyes, swallowing the bile rising in her throat. "I want to stay with her." "No, different lodges. Black Wolf is great warrior, most feared among enemies. You birth sons for him, strong sons." As night fell fully, Sarah was led to a small teepee at the edge of camp. Black Wolf followed, his expression unreadable as he entered behind her. Sarah backed away, her breath coming in short gasps. "I won't. You can't force me to." To her surprise, he simply pointed to a buffalo robe on one side of the teepee, then settled on the opposite side, his back to her. Though relief flooded her, Sarah knew this was merely a temporary reprieve. Tomorrow she would become his wife in a Comanche ceremony, and after that, she curled into herself on the robe, silent tears streaming down her face as she thought of Emma, somewhere in this camp but impossibly far away. Tomorrow she would be forced to marry a man whose language she didn't speak, whose people had killed countless settlers, a warrior so fierce even other Comanche respected and feared him. Black Wolf listened to her quiet sobs, his face remaining stoic in the darkness. Something about this white woman intrigued him. Her courage in defending her child, her willingness to sacrifice herself. Among his people, such strength was valued, particularly in a mother of warriors. He had lost 2 wives to disease and needed sons to carry on his legacy. The tribal elders had blessed this match, believing the white woman's different blood might resist the sickness that had claimed so many Comanche lives. As Sarah finally drifted into exhausted sleep, Black Wolf studied her in the faint moonlight filtering through the teepee opening. She would fight, but eventually she would understand. This was her path now. The whites had taken much from his people: land, buffalo, lives. Now he had taken something of theirs, a woman who would bear his children and strengthen his bloodline. Tomorrow, she would become Comanche. Dawn broke with the sounds of the awakening Comanche camp. Sarah opened her swollen eyes to find Black Wolf already gone, the teepee empty except for a bundle of clothes left beside her. Examining the garments, a simple deerskin dress with beaded decorations, she realized these were meant to replace her tattered settler's clothing. She changed reluctantly, knowing resistance was pointless. The dress felt foreign against her skin, but it was well made and surprisingly comfortable. Outside, she blinked in the bright morning light, immediately searching for Emma. "Your daughter is well," came a voice in English. Sarah turned to see a young Comanche woman watching her with curious eyes. "I am Morning Dove. I speak your language. I was captured many seasons ago." "You're white?" Sarah asked, studying the woman's sun-darkened skin and traditional Comanche attire. "I was. Now I am Comanche, wife of Swift Arrow's son." Morning Dove's expression softened. "Your daughter is with Silver Rain, our best healer. She is kind to children." "Please, I need to see her," Sarah pleaded. Morning Dove hesitated. After ceremony, Black Wolf waits. Sarah's heart raced. "The marriage? Now?" "Yes. Come." Morning Dove led her through the camp, explaining as they walked. "Black Wolf is most respected warrior. Many coups against enemies, many horses, high status. You are fortunate." "Fortunate?" Sarah couldn't hide her bitterness. "To be taken from my home? Forced to marry a man I don't know?" Morning Dove stopped, her expression serious. "I felt same. Angry, afraid. But Comanche life is good when you accept it. Women have power here, respected. Black Wolf has no other wives, unusual for great warrior." They reached a central area where many tribe members had gathered. Black Wolf stood beside Swift Arrow, dressed in ceremonial buckskins with an elaborate headdress of eagle feathers. His tall, powerful frame commanded respect, and even in her fear, Sarah couldn't deny his striking presence. The ceremony was brief, but solemn. Sarah understood little of the words spoken, but Morning Dove translated the essential parts. Their hands were bound with a strip of rawhide, and they shared food from the same bowl. Throughout it all, Black Wolf's expression remained inscrutable, his dark eyes occasionally meeting hers with an intensity that made her look away. When it was over, Swift Arrow announced something that caused murmurs of approval among the gathered tribe. Morning Dove leaned close. "He says you keep your daughter. She will live in your lodge. Black Wolf has permitted it." Relief washed over Sarah like a flood. "Thank you," she whispered, though Black Wolf gave no indication he understood her gratitude. Emma was brought to her then, running into her arms with tears streaming down her small face. "Mama, I was so scared." "I know, sweetheart. I'm here now," Sarah soothed, holding her daughter close. "We're going to stay together." "Are we going home?" Emma asked hopefully. Sarah's heart constricted. "No, darling. This is our home now." Black Wolf approached them, his shadow falling across the reunited pair. He spoke several words to Emma in Comanche, his voice unexpectedly gentle. To Sarah's surprise, he reached down and briefly touched Emma's hair, almost as if offering comfort. Morning Dove translated. "He says your daughter has brave spirit like mother, good Comanche quality." That afternoon, Sarah and Emma were shown to a larger teepee that would be their new home. Black Wolf's possessions, weapons, ceremonial items, and evidence of his status lined one side. Sarah tried to create a small space that felt like their own, arranging their sleeping robes and the few items they had been given. "Will the Indian man hurt us?" Emma whispered fearfully as they settled in. "His name is Black Wolf," Sarah corrected gently. "And no, I don't think he will hurt us. We need to learn their ways, Emma. It's how we'll survive. When Black Wolf returned that evening, he brought fresh meat from a hunt. Without words, he indicated that Sarah should prepare it. Though her cooking skills were limited to settler cuisine, she did her best with the unfamiliar ingredients and cooking methods. The meal was consumed in silence, Black Wolf occasionally correcting her technique with gestures but otherwise maintaining his distance. After Emma fell asleep, Sarah sat tensely on her sleeping robe, dreading what would come next. Black Wolf approached, kneeling before her. To her surprise, he pulled out a small carved wooden horse and placed it in her hands. The craftsmanship was extraordinary, each detail lovingly rendered. "For girl," he said in heavily accented English, his first words directly to her. Sarah looked up, startled. "You speak English?" "Little." He touched his chest. "Black Wolf." "You?" He pointed at her. "Sarah," she replied softly. "My daughter is Emma." He nodded once. "Sarah." Her name sounded different in his deep voice, the syllables stretched and transformed. "Tomorrow, learn Comanche ways." With that, he moved to his own sleeping area, maintaining the distance he had kept the previous night. Sarah clutched the wooden horse, confusion mingling with her fear. This wasn't what she had expected from the fearsome warrior she'd heard about in terrifying settler tales. Days passed, establishing a routine. Mourning Dove and other women taught Sarah Comanche skills, preparing hides, cooking tribal foods, gathering plants for medicine and dyes. Emma adapted more quickly, playing with Comanche children and absorbing the language with the facility of youth. Black Wolf remained an enigma. Though he now shared their teepee, he treated Sarah with distant respect, never forcing himself upon her as she had feared. Each day he brought food, taught Emma small skills, and attempted basic communication with Sarah, but maintained an emotional distance that both relieved and puzzled her. One evening, nearly 2 weeks after her capture, Sarah found the courage to ask Mourning Dove about him. "Why does he not?" She struggled to articulate her question. "He has not claimed his husband rights." Mourning Dove smiled knowingly. "Black Wolf follows old ways, believes woman must come willingly. No honor in forcing. He waits for you to accept your place." "What if I never do?" Sarah challenged. "You will," Mourning Dove replied simply, "or you will be unhappy forever. Choice is yours." That night, as Black Wolf entered their teepee, Sarah studied him openly for the first time. In the flickering firelight, she noticed a long scar that ran from his temple down his cheek, partially hidden by his hair. His hands, though capable of violence, were gentle when handling Emma's small offerings, pebbles and flowers collected during her daily explorations. "How did you get your name?" Sarah asked suddenly. Black Wolf looked up, surprised by her initiation of conversation. He seemed to consider his limited English vocabulary before answering. "As boy, I track wolf. Black Wolf. Many days. Learn from wolf. Silent. Patient. Strong." He touched his chest. "Become Black Wolf." It was the longest exchange they had shared. Sarah nodded, absorbing this small piece of his identity. "I was named after my grandmother," she offered in return. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Good name, strong name." As Emma slept soundly between them, a fragile bridge of understanding began to form, tenuous, uncertain but present. Sarah still longed for her former life, still felt like a captive in a strange land. But something was shifting. The monster of her imagination was revealing himself to be a man, complex, foreign to her understanding, but human nonetheless. That night, for the first time since her capture, Sarah slept without tears. Summer turned to fall, and Sarah's hands grew skilled in Comanche ways. She could now prepare hides with the expertise of women born to the tribe, her fingers working the skins until they became soft as cloth. Emma spoke Comanche fluently, often acting as translator between her mother and the tribe, especially with Black Wolf, whose English remained limited. One crisp morning, Sarah sat outside their teepee, grinding corn for the day's meals. Emma played nearby with Silver Rain's granddaughter, their laughter floating across the camp. The sound stirred something in Sarah's heart. Her daughter was happy here, adapting in ways Sarah still struggled with. "Your hands work well now," Mourning Dove commented, settling beside her. "You learn quickly for a white woman." Sarah offered a small smile. "Necessity is a demanding teacher." Black Wolf watches you, Morning Dove observed, nodding subtly toward the edge of camp where the warrior stood with other men, occasionally glancing in Sarah's direction. He is patient, but he grows restless. Heat flushed Sarah's cheeks. Though she and Black Wolf now communicated more freely and shared their teepee, their relationship remained unconsummated. I cannot give him what he wants. Cannot or will not? Morning Dove's question held no judgment, merely curiosity. Sarah paused in her work. Both, perhaps. I was taken against my will. How can I ever truly accept him? My first husband died fighting Utes, Morning Dove said quietly. I grieved deeply. When Swift Arrow's son took me as wife, I hated him. But hate is heavy burden. In time, I set it down. She touched Sarah's arm. You are not first white woman to become Comanche. Some find happiness. Some never do. Later that day, as Sarah collected water from the stream, she noticed Black Wolf approaching on horseback, returning from a hunting party. His commanding presence on his spotted warhorse still intimidated her, but the raw fear she had initially felt had gradually transformed into something more complex. He dismounted near her, leading his horse to drink. Good hunt, he said, gesturing to the deer slung across a second horse. Meat for winter. Sarah nodded. Emma will be pleased. She likes the venison stew Silver Rain taught me to make. Black Wolf studied her face. Emma becomes Comanche quickly. Mother slower. The observation stung with its accuracy. I try, Sarah defended. But this isn't the life I chose. Life chooses for us sometimes. His limited English couldn't mask the wisdom in his words. My first wife, Laughing Brook, died of spotted sickness. Second wife, too, did not choose this. It was the first time he had spoken of his past wives. Sarah felt a flicker of empathy. I'm sorry. He helped her lift the filled water skin. Tonight, tribal council. Important matters. You come. Me? Sarah was surprised. White captives, even those who had married into the tribe, were rarely included in significant gatherings. You are wife of Black Wolf, he stated simply, as if that explained everything. The council meeting gathered around a large fire as darkness fell. Tribal elders sat in positions of honor, with warriors and their families forming a circle around them. Sarah sat beside Black Wolf, aware of curious glances from tribal members who still viewed her with suspicion. Swift Arrow spoke at length, his words translated in whispers by Morning Dove. Scouts had reported increasing numbers of white settlers moving into traditional Comanche hunting grounds to the east. More alarming were reports of bluecoat soldiers establishing a new fort within 2 days' ride of their current camp. Tension rippled through the gathering. Sarah felt the weight of her whiteness acutely as angry voices rose, some casting accusatory glances her way. Black Wolf's hand settled briefly on hers, a subtle gesture of protection that didn't go unnoticed by others. When Black Wolf rose to speak, the crowd hushed immediately. His words carried authority that even Sarah, with her limited understanding of the language, could recognize. Through Morning Dove's translation, she learned he was advocating for the tribe to move their winter camp farther west, away from the encroaching white presence. Some warriors want to attack the fort, Morning Dove whispered. Black Wolf says this would bring more soldiers, more death. He speaks wisdom, but young warriors thirst for coups. The council ended with the decision to send scouts to find suitable winter grounds farther from white settlement. As they walked back to their teepee, Sarah felt Black Wolf's silent concern. The arrival of more whites threatened not only his tribe, but also complicated her position within it. If soldiers come, she began hesitantly, would you let me and Emma return? Black Wolf stopped walking, his expression hardening. You are Comanche now. Emma is Comanche. No return. But I could help negotiate peace, Sarah argued. Prevent bloodshed on both sides. Whites want no peace, want only land, Buffalo. Want Comanche gone. His voice carried the bitterness of experience. You think they welcome you now, with Comanche husband, Comanche child? They call you squaw. You treat worse than slave. His words struck a painful chord of truth. Sarah had heard stories of returned captives, especially women who had borne native children, being shunned by white society. Emma, now speaking Comanche and dressed in tribal clothes, would face cruelty and rejection. That night, as Emma slept, Sarah found herself watching Black Wolf as he meticulously maintained his weapons by firelight. The dancing flames highlighted the planes of his face. The scar she now knew came from a battle with Ute warriors years before. His hands moved with practiced precision, strong yet capable of unexpected gentleness. "Teach me more Comanche words," she requested suddenly. He looked up, surprise momentarily replacing his stoic expression. Why now? Sarah couldn't fully explain the shift occurring within her. If this is our life, I should speak the language better. For the next hour, he patiently taught her practical phrases, correcting her pronunciation with unexpected humor that occasionally broke through his reserve. When their hands accidentally touched during a gesture, neither pulled away immediately. The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken questions. "What is Comanche word for fear?" Sarah asked softly. "Nanianatu," he replied, studying her face intently. "And courage?" "Nanianatukaitu." His hand cautiously covered hers. "Courage is knowing fear but standing strong. And what is the word for this?" She tentatively placed her free hand over her heart. Black Wolf's expression softened in the firelight. "Pinai." His voice deepened. "Heart." "Pinai," she repeated, the foreign word feeling significant on her tongue. When he leaned forward, Sarah didn't retreat. His lips met hers in a kiss that began hesitantly but quickly kindled into something more urgent. Months of restrained tension dissolved as she responded, surprising herself with the intensity of her reaction. His hands cradled her face with reverence. "Sarah," he whispered, her name a question and a plea. In answer, she drew him closer. That night, the distance between captive and captor, between white woman and Comanche warrior, finally closed. In the darkness of their teepee, Sarah made her choice, not forgetting her past, but accepting her present. As their bodies joined, she discovered that physical surrender could sometimes precede emotional acceptance, and that what had begun as captivity could transform into something neither had expected. Afterward, as they lay together in the quiet darkness, Black Wolf traced the contours of her face as if memorizing her features. "You are strong, Sarah. Stronger than you know." "I don't feel strong," she confessed. "I feel lost between two worlds. Then we find new world. Together." His simple words offered a vision she had never considered. Not fully white, not fully Comanche, but something new forged between them. Sarah closed her eyes, her head resting on his chest, listening to the steady beating of his heart. Tomorrow the complications would remain. The threat of soldiers, the judgment of the tribe, her own conflicted loyalties. But tonight she had found an unexpected peace in the arms of the man who had once been her enemy. And somewhere in that peace was the first fragile tendril of what might one day grow into love. Winter descended upon the plains with biting winds and swirling snow. The tribe had relocated to a sheltered valley with better protection from the elements, following Black Wolf's counsel. Their teepee, now lined with additional furs and a central fire that rarely died, became a warm haven against the season's harshness. Sarah stood at the entrance, watching fat snowflakes drift from a gray sky. Her body had changed, her waist thickening with the child growing inside her. Black Wolf's child. The knowledge still filled her with conflicting emotions, but increasingly, joy outweighed apprehension. "Come inside, Mama," Emma called, her Comanche accent now stronger than her English one. "Black Wolf is teaching me to make arrows." Sarah smiled, turning to watch her daughter sitting beside her husband, for truly, that was what he had become. Emma's small fingers mimicked Black Wolf's skilled movements as he demonstrated how to attach feathers to a shaft. The scene stirred something profound in Sarah's heart. "You should rest," Black Wolf said, noticing her watching them. His concern for her pregnancy had manifested in protective gestures that sometimes bordered on overprotectiveness. "I'm not ill, just with child," Sarah reminded him, settling beside them nonetheless. "My mother worked in the fields until the day before I was born." "White woman not as strong as Comanche," he teased, the humor that had gradually emerged between them lighting his dark eyes. Sarah playfully swatted his arm. "This white woman could outwork most of your warriors." Emma giggled at their exchange, delighted by their growing affection. "When will my brother come?" "Sister," Black Wolf corrected with certainty. "Strong daughter, like mother." "How can you be so sure?" Sarah asked. "Dreams tell me," he replied simply. Black Wolf's spiritual beliefs remained an aspect of Comanche life that Sarah was still learning to understand, though she had begun participating in some ceremonies, finding unexpected comfort in their rhythms and meanings. A commotion outside interrupted their domestic moment. Black Wolf rose swiftly, reaching for his knife. "Stay here," he instructed, before ducking through the teepee entrance. Sarah moved to the doorway, watching as riders entered the camp, Comanche scouts returning urgently. Even from a distance, their tense postures communicated trouble. Black Wolf conferred with the scouts, his expression darkening. When he returned to their teepee, his face was grave. "Bluecoats many, 2 camps away, moving this direction." "Searching for the tribe?" Sarah asked, fear clutching her heart. "Searching for white captives," he corrected. Scout heard them question Kiowa camp, asking about white woman and child taken last spring. Sarah's breath caught. Someone was looking for them, perhaps neighbors from the settlement, or even distant relatives who had learned of their capture. "What will happen?" she whispered. "Tribal council meets now, must decide. Fight or move deeper into winterlands." His eyes held hers intensely. "They will ask you to speak." "Me? Why?" "You know white soldiers' ways. And—" he hesitated. "Some think you should be returned." The possibility hung between them like a physical presence. After all these months, after all that had changed, she might be forced to choose definitively between worlds. The council gathered hurriedly as dusk approached. Swift Arrow's face was lined with concern as he addressed the assembled tribe. Sarah sat beside Black Wolf, acutely aware of the suspicious glances from those who had never fully accepted her presence. Through Mourning Dove's translation, Sarah learned the scouts had encountered a cavalry unit led by a Captain Williams, specifically searching for a widow woman named Mitchell and her daughter, taken during a raid last spring. Her maiden name. They were looking for her specifically. When Swift Arrow called upon her to speak, Sarah rose slowly, one hand resting protectively over her swollen belly. She spoke in her improving Comanche, switching to English when the words failed her, with Mourning Dove translating. "I know how these soldiers operate," she explained. "If they believe captives are being held, they won't stop searching. They have orders, and disobeying means punishment." "Should we fight?" a young warrior demanded. "Kill all bluecoats?" Sarah shook her head firmly. "They would send more soldiers, hundreds more. It would mean death for many Comanche." "Then what path?" Swift Arrow asked gravely. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her next words. "Let me meet with them, alone. I will tell them I choose to stay with my husband, that Emma and I are here willingly." Murmurs rippled through the gathering. Black Wolf stood beside her, his expression unreadable. "Dangerous, they may take you by force." "Not if we arrange the meeting carefully," Sarah reasoned. "On Comanche terms, with warriors hidden nearby." The debate continued into the night. Opinions divided between fleeing, fighting, or accepting Sarah's proposal. Finally, Swift Arrow raised his hand for silence. "Black Wolf is respected war chief. His woman shows courage. We will do as she suggests." He turned to Black Wolf. "But if bluecoats betray trust, you decide their fate." Dawn broke clear and cold the next morning as Sarah prepared for the meeting. She dressed in a mixture of Comanche and settler clothing, buckskin leggings beneath her old cotton dress, which had been carefully preserved. Emma would remain in camp with Mourning Dove, despite her protests. Black Wolf approached as she braided her hair. "Not too late to change plan. We can move camp tonight." Sarah turned to face him, reaching up to touch the worry lines etched on his forehead. "This is the only way to secure peace for us, for our family." His hand covered hers, pressing it against his cheek. "If they take you—" "They won't," she interrupted with more confidence than she felt. "But if something happens, promise me you'll keep Emma safe." "With my life," he vowed. Their kiss held desperation and fear, but also determination. Whatever happened this day would decide their future, together or apart. The meeting place was a small clearing 2 miles from camp. Sarah rode with Black Wolf and 4 warriors approaching cautiously. Captain Williams and 6 soldiers waited, their blue uniforms stark against the winter landscape. "Stay behind me," Black Wolf instructed as they halted 50 yards from the soldiers. "I speak first." The captain rode forward alone, his hand conspicuously away from his weapon. "I am Captain James Williams of the United States Cavalry. We're looking for Sarah Mitchell and her daughter Emma, taken during a Comanche raid last spring. Black Wolf's voice carried clearly across the space between them. I am Black Wolf of the Quahati Comanche. The woman Sarah is here. She speaks for herself. Sarah urged her horse forward, her heart pounding as the captain's eyes widened in recognition. Mrs. Mitchell, thank God you're alive. We've been searching for months. Your husband's cousin in Austin hired us to find you. Thomas's cousin? Sarah said in surprise. She barely remembered the distant relative who had visited once years ago. Yes, ma'am. He's offering a substantial reward for your safe return. The captain's gaze dropped momentarily to her pregnant state, his expression shifting. I see your situation, but I assure you, Christian charity will prevail. You and your daughter will be cared for. The implication was clear. Her pregnancy would be a source of shame among whites, something to be hidden away, perhaps even ended. The child she now cherished would be viewed as an abomination. Captain Williams, Sarah said clearly, I appreciate your concern and the trouble you've taken, but I need to make something clear. I was indeed taken against my will initially, but my circumstances have changed. She glanced back at Black Wolf, drawing strength from his steady presence. I have married according to Comanche law. I carry my husband's child. My daughter is thriving here. We will not be returning. The captain's face registered disbelief. Mrs. Mitchell, if you're being coerced. My name is Sarah, she interrupted firmly, and I speak freely. This is my family now. Ma'am, with all due respect, these savages murdered settlers, took you captive, and your people have done the same to them, Sarah countered. I've seen both worlds now, Captain. Neither is perfect, but my choice is made. The captain removed his hat, rubbing his forehead in frustration. I cannot in good conscience leave a white woman and child. Then in good conscience hear my words, Sarah said, straightening her back. Tell Thomas's cousin I died. Tell him Emma died. It will be easier than the truth, that I chose to remain with my Comanche husband. And if I refuse, if I return with more men, Black Wolf moved his horse alongside Sarah's. Then you find empty camp and many graves, yours among them. The tension stretched between them, the threat of violence hovering in the cold air. Finally, the captain replaced his hat. I'll report that I found evidence you both perished during the initial raid. It will be a kindness to your remaining family. His eyes met Sarah's one last time. I pray you never have cause to regret this decision, Mrs. Mitchell. I won't, Sarah replied with quiet certainty. And I thank you for your understanding, Captain Williams. As the soldiers rode away, Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She turned to Black Wolf, whose stoic expression had softened into something resembling pride. You chose with strong heart, he said simply. I chose our family, she corrected, taking his hand and placing it on her rounded belly. My place is here now. They returned to camp in silence, each lost in contemplation of what had just transpired. Emma ran to meet them, her face alight with relief. You came back, she cried, throwing herself into Sarah's arms. Of course we did, Sarah murmured, holding her daughter close. This is our home. That evening, the tribe celebrated with a feast honoring Sarah's choice and the child growing within her. As firelight illuminated the gathering, Swift Arrow formally welcomed her as a true daughter of the people, presenting her with a special necklace traditionally given to honored women of the tribe. Black Wolf watched with unconcealed pride as Sarah accepted the gift. Later, as they sat together outside their teepee beneath a canopy of winter stars, he spoke the words she had been waiting months to hear. I took you as captive, he admitted quietly. Angry at whites for taking Comanche land, Comanche lives, thought only of sons you would bear. His hand gently cradled her cheek. Did not expect to give heart also. Are you saying you love me, Black Wolf? Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Comanche warriors speak such words rarely, he replied. But yes, Aitsanua, I love you. Sarah leaned into his embrace, finally at peace with the strange journey that had brought her to this moment. And I love you, not despite our differences, but perhaps because of them. 4 moons later, as spring renewed the plains, Sarah gave birth to a daughter they named Morning Star, a child of 2 worlds who would grow to embody the best of both. Emma adored her sister instantly, appointed herself protector and teacher, with all the solemnity a 9-year-old could muster. Standing outside their teepee, watching Black Wolf show Emma how to train a young horse while cradling Morning Star against her chest, Sarah reflected on the unpredictable path her life had taken. What had begun in violence and fear had transformed into something she could never have imagined. A family forged across the divide of two cultures, a love that defied the prejudices of both worlds. The White Widow and the Comanche warrior had found in each other not what they sought, but what they needed. Not captivity, but freedom. Not hatred, but healing. Not desire alone, but enduring love. And in the union of their different worlds, they had created something entirely new. A future where understanding might one day replace fear, where hearts might recognize each other across the boundaries that divided them. Sarah smiled as Black Wolf looked up, their eyes meeting across the distance. No words were needed now. They had created their own language, their own world. And in that world, they were simply a man and a woman who had found their way home in each other's hearts.